Good morning, everybody. It's sunrise here in Salt Lake City, and I am going to share some random thoughts with you today. I know I'm popping on at a time when people are not aware that I was going to be doing this, so I'm not even sure if anyone... Oh my gosh, Alethea is on. Hi, Alethea. Hi. Hi, Mandy. Surprise! The sun's going to be coming up any second, and I just thought I'd share some random thoughts with you guys all today. So I just want you guys to know that this is a strictly esoteric explanation. This morning we're going to talk about, I talk about spiritual warriors a lot in my videos, and it's kind of a passionate topic for me, and I know that that's a term that's used a lot, so I just want to talk about what that means to me today. And that is not something that's going to have any kind of a scientific proof or explanation. So today is just a strictly esoteric explanation for any of my viewers that really are just hardcore about a scientific explanation. You're not going to get that here today. So just be prepared for that. This is strictly esoteric, and this is my perspective on it. So I just want to make sure that we're real clear on that right from the get-go. First thing that I want to talk about in regards to spiritual warriors is the fact that if you look through like ancient wisdoms throughout the world, most of them, you know, as cultures started to bleed into other cultures and they literally did not speak the same language, it's very easy for them to just think that what they were talking about were completely different things, when in reality, once you kind of start to learn the deep patterns within religions and most, you know, really profoundly impactful organizations and things like that, they tend to have a lot of similar patterns. And most of them have, you know, really profound leaders that would be considered like the spiritual warriors of their belief systems. And these are really great teachers and great examples of practicing what they preached, so to speak. But there's other incredible spiritual warriors that have walked the face of this earth before, and they're not necessarily people that we think of in terms of religion or anything. So I want to talk about the Abraham Lincolns of this world. I want to talk about the George Washingtons of this world, who was freaking amazing. I want to talk about the Nelson Mandelas of this world. I want to talk about the Mother Teresas of this world, the Saint Germains, lots of saints actually. I want to talk about the mothers. They're all freaking saints. I want to talk about the fathers. I want to talk about the people that go and, you know, whether or not you're about war. I'm not about war. I don't believe at all in war, but I love people who serve their countries. I think that is a really extremely beautiful thing and really impressive thing. So I choose to focus on that. You know, but I do want to talk about the difference between a warrior and a fighter. First of all, a warrior's not a fighter, even though they're an excellent fighter. They do what they can to avoid a fight. They're really good at knowing how to avoid a fight with magnificence. They do know that they're going to win a fight if they get in one, but that doesn't mean that they go out seeking fights. You know, they only fight for things that they believe in, and you know, I think about like a Knight of the Round Table. I think about King Arthur, and not only did he have a round table where he expected all of his knights to look at him eye to eye, and he looked them eye to eye, which is the way that a true king should be. But in addition to that, there's not one of his knights that he would have expected not to fight for what they believed in, what their honor was, what their hearts just absolutely sang for. And as a leader, that's how he taught them. He taught them to fight for what their hearts believed in, and most of the time that did align with what his heart believed in. But if it didn't align with what his heart believed in, he still expected them to fight for what their hearts believed in. So there's a lot of different ways a spiritual warrior looks, but I want to talk about a modern day spiritual warrior. I want to talk about today's spiritual warriors, okay? Because there's a ridiculous amount of them, and they're really important right now. And what a spiritual warrior is from my perspective, okay? You know, we all know that there's some of the greatest teachers throughout history. I like to talk about one that I consider a close friend and that is really profoundly impactful worldwide, and that's Jesus. Okay, Jesus, I don't look at him as my savior personally. I do believe that he was showing us something that we're able to achieve called Christ consciousness, but I believe that in that lifetime, what he was trying to achieve was showing humanity at a time when they were, extraordinarily violent. You think about the Romans at that time, and killing people in public was just a normal day for them. That was not weird to crucify people. It was not weird to have gladiators ripping each other to death in public arenas. So, it was a really profoundly important thing at the time that Jesus was walking on the planet, and the time especially where he was, to show people a path of peace, and that it was possible to live a heart-aligned path. But this day and age, we need a different kind of warriors. Oh my gosh, I'm really excited. That sun's gonna come. It's gonna come up any second. This day and age, we need a different kind of warriors. We need a kind of warriors that show people how to forgive themselves, that show people how to love themselves even when they've made mistakes, that show people that they're perfect even in their imperfections. So I believe that today's spiritual warriors were a lot more sneaky. I believe that most of them implanted themselves into lives and families and circumstances where they were going to feel not quite at home, and they might feel a little bit isolated, and for some reason that would bring up fears within them, okay? And that these fears would lead to a lot of challenges for them, that some of these spiritual warriors would choose paths that included drugs or alcohol. Some of them would be beaten or maybe even beat somebody. Some of them would be the bad guy in somebody's story, or all of them in someone's story at some point, but most or all of them would be victims in someone's story, and they would all forget who they were for a really long time. So this would be a really isolated feeling. But at some point, this wave of spiritual warriors would awaken to who they are, and they would, hey, good evening, it's good morning here, we're about to have sunrise. I just got a good evening from Greece message. Thank you for saying hello from Greece, but we're about to have the sunrise. Anyway, spiritual warriors, like I said, would implant themselves in lives and worlds where they wouldn't know that they were spiritual warriors, and they would maybe even think they'd been forgotten, that they were isolated. Some of them would be maybe bullies a little bit sometimes, but a lot of them would be bullied. Oh my gosh, look at this, look how gorgeous. You can see it's starting to peek its little head out. So, and the reason I think that the spiritual warriors would be a little bit of a crockpot of everything is because nobody's perfect. I don't care which person claims to have not made mistakes. Everyone's made mistakes. Not everyone's chosen the same addictions. Not everyone has chosen the same darknesses in their paths, but every single one of us have chosen on our path both the darkness and the light. Oh my God, that is so beautiful. All of us have chosen the darkness and the light on our path. And so it's my belief that the spiritual warriors that are needed this day and age would experience a lot of both, so that they'd be able to teach their family how to love themselves in spite of the fact that they've made a lot of mistakes. I think that there's a reason why when we talk about all those ancient esoteric wisdoms, almost all of them, if not every single one of them, talked about this day and age. This day and age. Oh my gosh, that's so pretty. They talked about this day and age as being when everything was going to change. It's not just the Mayans whose calendar talked about this day and age. This was considered the second coming, so to speak, time for many, many, many cultures. And what that's going to look like for me is not the same as what it maybe looked like in the way that I was taught growing up. It looks a lot more like a whole bunch of beautiful spiritual warriors awakening to their cause and to their purpose and to who they are, and remembering that they are okay and perfect in spite of the fact that they've made mistakes. Because as that path of spiritual warriors, or as that wave of spiritual warriors learns to totally love themselves and forgive themselves, they're going to be able to turn around and teach others to do the same, to forgive themselves. This is how you heal an entire world. You don't take a small portion of the people. You don't offer only one religion, or only a small group of people, or only the most perfectest people of all of them. Everybody gets a chance to choose love. Everybody gets a chance to choose the path of light. And the only chance people have of truly forgiving themselves is if there's other people who are showing them how to forgive themselves in spite of the fact that they've made mistakes. And those are called spiritual warriors. Spiritual warriors this day and age in 2018, they don't look the same as the warriors that were planting the seeds to prepare the way. There were different waves. So pretty. There were different waves of different needs, of different masters and different teachers throughout the years, and some of them were religious teachers, and some of them were great political leaders, and some of them were great kings and queens, and there were extraordinary men and women throughout history who laid the groundwork. The Princess Dianas of this world, oh God, I love her, and the Mahatma Gandhis, there's so many that were not just religious leaders, but they showed the way of love. They showed the way, I cannot believe how gorgeous. They showed the way of love. They showed the way of light. They showed the way of just doing what was right, in spite of the fact that it wasn't always what was societally expected. It never was. In fact, they were considered rebels for doing what's right. But that's a sacred rebel's duty. A sacred rebel's duty is to awaken to their purpose at some point and realize that they, on purpose, maybe gave themselves some challenges in this life so that they could not only learn how to love themselves anyway, but that they could then turn around and teach their family how to do the same, because it's hard to forgive yourself. And we deserve to. And there needs to be a wave of people that are going to be willing to say, you know what, in spite of every single mistake I've ever made, I'm choosing right this second that I'm going to love myself. And I'm going to choose that when my neighbor comes to me and says, how do I love myself? That I'm going to show them how to, even if they were mean to me at some point. Even if they were not the nicest person, even if they sometimes added to my feelings of isolation, I'm going to help teach that person how to love themselves and forgive themselves, because that's the spiritual warrior that I am. That's the spiritual warrior way. So anyway, I hope that this is informative. And I want to reiterate again that this was 100% esoteric explanation. This is my own explanation of what a spiritual warrior is. This is not anything I'm trying to pass as like scientific. I do believe that there's a lot of things I could prove scientifically as far as the ascension process goes, but as far as my explanation of spiritual warriors, I just want to offer that to you and see if it resonates, and offer you guys an extremely beautiful sunrise that, as usual, is not really quite being done justice by my phone, but sure is pretty. Anyway, love you all worldwide. Bye!